Hey friends, so, I always say that relationships themselves are not complicated, but people are. And that's why they can be so challenging to navigate sometimes. This is especially true when you're in a relationship with someone who is a poor communicator, or who has a hard time apologizing, or even admitting when they are wrong, or who lacks self-awareness. Sometimes these kinds of challenges are figure-outable, meaning that one or more parties are willing to admit that sometimes they are part of the problem, that they too have shortcomings, just like everyone else. And most important of all, they are willing to do the work to better themselves, which will in turn better the relationship. It all really comes down to personal accountability. That means taking ownership of your actions, your words, your behaviors, and accepting responsibility for their consequences. This is not something that comes naturally to some people. Hell, I would venture to guess that it doesn't come naturally to most people. But it's still a really important thing to learn while you navigate life and relationships, because, let's face it, nobody wants to be around people who can never own up to their behavior or take responsibility for themselves. There are some people, though, who simply never get there. They cannot ever take responsibilities for their own actions. They cannot see how they contribute to a problem. And when you find yourself in a relationship with a person like this, there is an acceptance that very often has to take place. You have to learn that there are some people who have to see you always as being the problem. They cannot accept any other option or outcome, not even within themselves. And they do this because if they convince themselves and everyone else that you are the problem, that means that they are not. And if they're not the problem, then they don't need to change their behavior or their patterns, not even the unhealthy ones. They never have to improve how they treat people or navigate relationships. They don't have to change anything, ever. So when your relationship with that person ends, or even if it hasn't ended yet, a few things happen. They twist situations, no matter what, or who is actually at fault, to put most of the blame on somebody else, probably you. No matter what actually happened, it's your fault. If they did something horrid, it was because you made them with something that you did. They will deny and deflect whatever defense you try to mount, and sometimes it will be so damn effective that you start doubting your own reality. It goes without saying that relationships like this are incredibly unhealthy. They can suck the life force right out of you, leaving you with major hits to your self-esteem and some significant trauma sometimes too. And that can last for years after the relationship has ended. I won't even talk about the trust issues that often ensue. And speaking of that, I have been threatening to make a video about trust issues, because I'll admit that those are something that I have personally struggled with a lot in the past, and I know that it's very, very difficult to carry around. It's kind of funny, whenever someone would say something about that subject to me during that time or accuse me of having trust issues, I would always say, well, I wouldn't have trust issues if people didn't have lying issues or manipulation issues. It took me a long time to break out of that mindset too. And I know I'm not the only one who's been there, so to speak. So I will make sure to move that topic up on the schedule. Anyway, back to the actual subject here. Why are some people just like this? Why can they never, ever just take responsibility? And why do they need to believe that you or whoever else is the convenient scapegoat is the problem and not them? Well, it all starts with a very basic psychological defense mechanism that you have definitely heard before: projection. Projection is basically when someone unconsciously takes parts of themselves that they don't like insecurity, shame, guilt, and throws it on to somebody else. So instead of thinking maybe what I said was too harsh, when they say something to you that was in fact too harsh, they say, "Why are you always so dramatic?" It's their brain's way of saying, I'm not ready to face or deal with the feelings that are associated with what just happened, so I'll just make it somebody else's fault. And who better than you, who happens to be right there, right? This is the part of the narrative where we have to talk about what is most often the root of this thinking. It's our old friend, insecurity. Yes, that's right. Blaming other people for everything all the time is a big red flag that a person is insecure about something. Probably the thing that they are actually guilty of. It's that insecurity that leads them to blaming others as a defense mechanism. I know this may sound complicated, but it's really not. Insecurity makes people feel vulnerable and threatened. It can poke at their ego, which might already be kind of fragile anyway. Their sense of self-worth is delicate. Therefore, admitting that they're wrong can feel like a little bit of an emotional death. It isn't just going to make them feel a little bit guilty. It's much more serious than that. It can make them feel like they are deeply, deeply flawed or even worthless. So their brain kicks into a sort of survival mode. They deflect and deny and attack. They need to protect their internal image of themselves, of being right and good and in control of their life and situations, even if it means they have to rewrite reality. This is especially true in people who have narcissistic traits, where shame and failure can be so overwhelming that they will do literally anything to avoid it, including throw someone else under the bus as many times as it takes to take away those heavy emotional burdens and shuffle them off from themselves. That is what projection is truly all about. Blaming someone else in order to shift that responsibility so that person can protect themselves. It gives them relief from uncomfortable feelings, even if that relief is only temporary. I mean, look, every story needs a villain, right? And in their story, that villain can't be them, so it's got to be you. People who lack emotional awareness do that. They often externalize their pain. They feel bad inside, and they need somebody else to pin it on outside, a scapegoat. If you challenge them, set boundaries, or trigger their insecurity, they'll frame you as the toxic one. Because, well, once again, if you're the problem, they don't need to look inward and realize, the call is coming from inside the house. Blaming you helps them protect their comfort zone. But, see, that relief that people get from their own guilt by blaming others, it comes at a really high cost. It often destroys their relationships with their loved ones. It leads to conflict and hurt feelings with everybody that they lob those blame grenades at. It sacrifices their personal growth, too, and keeps them stuck in those same old patterns of dysfunction like a hamster wheel. But that is rarely a conversation that they are ready to have if they are just out here dodging accountability for all of their mistakes and failures. This kind of thing happens a lot in romantic relationships, yes, but trust me, it can show up in every kind of relationship you can imagine, from partners and family who gaslight you to friends who can't admit that they have hurt you or betrayed your trust, co-workers who twist narratives to save face and themselves. These accountability dodgers can be everywhere and anywhere. It's interesting, though, despite being pretty widespread, and obviously everybody is different, they all kind of say the same things, as if there's some playbook for being insufferable that exists somewhere, and they all borrowed it from the library on the same day. Instead of saying, "You're right, I was wrong," some of their greatest hits include, "You're too sensitive," or "You're overreacting," "You know I didn't mean it like that," or, my favorite, "You always take everything the wrong way," as if blaming you for something that they did can be taken any other way. I'm sure some of those phrases sound familiar, and sometimes when we are in the thick of a situation or we are just really trying to give this person the benefit of the doubt, we might think, well, this is a communication issue. Maybe they don't mean it like that. But friends, it is not generally a communication issue at all. It is a self-awareness issue. And the issue is that they probably have very little of it, if any, at all. And truth be told, until they find some, or they learn, until they are ready to look at their own behavior, they are going to keep convincing themselves that you are the drama. You are the one at fault. You are the problem, not them. So what can you do about this? Well, there's bad news and then there's good news. The bad news is, last I checked, you still cannot change people or make them see or make them do things they don't want to do. The good news is that you can do several things to help you stop having a proverbial target on your forehead that says, place blame here, right in the middle. The first one is simple. Don't take the bait. Don't buy their fish story, so to speak. Stay rooted firmly in your own version of reality. There is nothing that you can do to convince them to edit their version, of course. But listen, that version that they keep selling themselves, they know it's BS on some level too. So it says a lot more about them than it does about you. Next, set boundaries, not battles. You should do this anyway in your relationships. It's a good thing. But remember, you do not have to attend every argument you are invited to. And you certainly don't need to win them either. You just need to protect your peace and your own mental well-being. Sometimes that's going to mean space from the person, from the situation, from anything associated with both, whatever is necessary to not allow their dysfunctions to become your dysfunctions too. That's one of the biggest mistakes that I feel we make as humans sometimes. We carry around so much stuff that isn't even ours. Sometimes you just got to put it down. You know what I'm saying? Keep trusting yourself and your perspective. Unfortunately, people who are accountability dodgers are usually great at manipulation too. Don't let them wear you down into believing that something is true when you know it isn't. Trusting yourself includes trusting your gut. If something feels off, it probably is. I'll be honest, some of the worst mistakes I have ever made in my life have been because I have not trusted my gut. I have not listened to my inner voice that was telling me, hey, pay attention, there is danger. I listened only to emotions. And to sound perfectly cheesy, with no shame here, I followed my heart, but I forgot to bring my brain along with it too. And to be functional and healthy, you have to have room for both. Know what I mean? Remember that not everybody is ready to be honest with themselves. Some people truly want and need the illusion of control more than they want the truth. That is on them. Don't wait around for people to realize the importance of that. The importance of being honest with themselves, I mean. You can waste years of your life waiting around for somebody to fix themselves or waiting for them to act right. Those years aren't coming back. And neither are the opportunities that probably passed you by while you were chasing the illusion of what could be someday. And finally, sometimes your winning move, your ace in the hole, so to speak, is one you may not have had at the top of your list, but you probably should. It's silence. Yeah, that's right, silence. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing. The most powerful thing you can do is also nothing. Let them fight that war against themselves by themselves. That's all I've got for you this week. I'll be back next week with another priority message. Until then, take good care of yourselves. Bye.